We've been focusing on, oh, DNA controlling life. The epigenetic story actually shifts our focus to looking at how environmental signals are controlling the DNA in our lives. So all of a sudden, it changes our belief system. It says, no, DNA is not self-actualizing. DNA expression is related to our response to the environment. So I say, okay, let's go back to the cells and tissue culture. And as I said, as I put the tissue culture cells in the plate and then feed them with culture medium, it is the culture medium that determines the fate of the cells. And I go, well, here's an interesting point. Well, we've been talking about cells in a petri dish. It's really no different than cells in your body. Remember, your body is comprised of 50 trillion cells. That, in fact, you can perceive of your body as a skin-covered petri dish, and within that dish are 50 trillion cells. So a human body is a petri dish. And I say, yeah. And just like our study in the laboratory, adding culture medium to the cells, well, in the body, the culture medium is the blood. So all of a sudden we say, well, it is no difference if the cell is in the plastic dish or the cell is in the skin-covered dish, because the cell is still going to respond to the culture medium environment. And in the human body, that culture medium is blood. I say, well, that becomes important because then the chemical composition of the blood is actually controlling the fate of the cells. And I say, well, there are two aspects to what is in the blood that is controlling biology. Number one is just the basic nutritional elements. So in culture medium, there's nutrition. And this is significant because it says when we make the culture medium called blood in our human body, it also is derived from nutrition. So one of the big factors affecting our health is, are we taking in proper nutrition that will support the health of our bodies, or are we taking in toxic elements as produced in industrial farming? Because these toxic elements will interfere with the growth medium, and in turn, via epigenetics, the toxic food that we eat will alter our genetic expression and can contribute to our health. Well, in addition to nutrients, blood contains cellular signals. I go, cellular signals? I say, yeah. Emotional chemistry, hormones, growth factors. So blood contains nutrition and blood contains information. And the cellular signals come from the nervous system. So to understand how we create the blood composition, recognize this. We live in an environment external to our body as well as we have an environment internal in our body. And I say, well, how does the cell know what the environment has in it? And the answer is this. The function of the nervous system in the brain is to read the composition of the environment in which we are living. So the function of the brain is perception, what is going on in the world. And then the brain will translate that perception into signals to coordinate the body's response to that environment. So the signals from the brain are passed via the nervous system and the circulatory system to the cells of the body. These signals in the blood are the factors that are then controlling epigenetics, and so brain-mediated signals control behavior and gene activity by being transmitted through the nervous system and blood to the target cells. When we get to the level of the human, it's more than just the environment that is controlling behavior and genes. When we get to the human, we start to recognize that there is a mind. And when we put the mind into the scheme, it changes the flow of information for this reason. The brain picks up the signals from the environment, but the mind does an interpretation of those signals, and that interpretation is translated into the chemistry released by the brain. So the culture medium components controlling biology are not necessarily directly related to the real world. The culture medium contains information that is directly related to our perception of the world. If we have a misperception of what's going on in our environment, then you realize this. The signals that our cells receive internally is not the signal of what's really going on in the world. And so the cells don't see the real world. They only see our interpretation. That interpretation translated by the brain turned into chemicals that are released into the body, causing the composition of the culture medium that influences cells. So we now have to recognize that the environment that we are living in is really creating the chemistry that is controlling our biology.